Hey, what's up? It's Frank here from Data Driven, and I just wanted to do a quick live stream here. It's been a while since I did a live stream, and you're probably wondering, hey, Frank, what's going on? So with that, let me introduce myself. My name is Frank Lavinia. I have a blog and a couple of podcasts, and I do a number of live streams across multiple platforms: YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, and of course, Periscope. And as usual, I kind of log in around this time on Saturdays while the kids are taking martial arts class, and I take live questions and do all sorts of other fun things from time to time. Hopefully, you can hear me, and hopefully, the audio quality is better this week. But speaking of this week, lots of things going on. I've not been able to live stream quite as much because there's construction going on again in my house. So the normal studio is kind of ripped up. I'm going to use this opportunity to kind of maybe rearrange things and kind of set up better lighting and things like that. But also, I think that there's a lot of other things going on. Well, I know there's a lot of things going on. First off, you may have noticed that blog posts from franksworld.com have slowed down. In fact, I think this is the longest period which I've not had regular posts. Now, part of that is there's some issues I'm having with WordPress and my host. My host actually so far has been pretty cool about it. They gave me extra CPU cycles last month, but and a whole laundry list of things on how to fix it. So basically, before I go and ask them for hey another stay of kind of CPU limitations, I need to have a certain amount of time to work on that. Right? WordPress is not the content management system we need. It's the content management system we deserve. Um, that having been said, blog posts have slowed down. Even like the image generator that's supposed to show the thumbnails, the site looks terrible right now. Like that's not working. So I need to fix that. It's on my list, rest assured. I'm also going to start streaming again. I'm taking over for Electrify. I work for Electrify AI. Not Electrify AI, Electrify. And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Frank Diggs Data. We have a weekly show called This Week in Applied AI, which I'm taking over as the host. I've already hosted one, but the last 2 weeks have been rather chaotic. So we're going to resume that on Thursday with some good stuff. And I'm looking forward to that. And that's all I got. I know this is going to be a short stream, but I want to let you know everything's fine. Just kind of a lot of opportunity, and sometimes opportunity sets that up. Later this month, Andy and I are launching what we're calling Project Ringgate. And the other thing we're working on is the new episode of Data Driven. And if you haven't listened to the latest one with Dave Wenzel, it's fantastic. Basically, it's about another one. I don't know who that is. I suspect I have some theories about who that is. It just says LinkedIn user. It's not another secret project. It's the same secret project. And if that's you, Bob, I'm sorry. I totally dropped the ball on sending you an email with kind of preview access to it. I will send it out. And no, you don't need to know about the expanse. So if you're interested in learning more about Project Ringgate, wherever you're watching, leave a comment below. And let's see, take a guess. So there's 3 people that for some reason on their accounts, it shows LinkedIn user rather than their actual name. One is Rupesh, another is Maina, and the third one is Bob. So I got a feeling this time it's actually Rupesh. I mean, I have a 1 in 3 shot of getting it right, but we'll find out. It's hard to tell. I mean, I'm actually streaming on my laptop, so and with headphones this time. So hopefully that'll work better. But take a guess. That could be a game on the live feed, right? Like that could be like a game. You know, who's actually speaking. So I said yes. So it is Rupesh. Awesome. Awesome. I also owe you an email, sir. It's been crazy. I'm actually attending a virtual conference this week coming up on quantum computing, which is going to be based out of New York. So when I got the invite, I was like, oh, really? Like in person in New York? So I got it right. So 1 out of 3. Um, and I put it up on the screen so that way you know I'm not lying about it. Like it's actually telling me that. Squirrel. All right. Focus. Focus. I need to focus. Um, Yeah, so there's a quantum computing conference. I will, well, normally I post on my blog, but I'll share it on LinkedIn. It looks pretty cool. I'm excited about it. It's actually going to be, I guess, strictly speaking, my first ever quantum computer conference that I've attended. I mean, if you count MLADS, then I guess it's the second one, but MLADS is ML. So um, if you'll permit me, I will look for an interesting article that came up um, in Forbes magazine. Hang on, let's see. Yes, it is here. All right, so let me share my screen. I'll take this into another window and I'll share my screen. Okay, that's not quite what I intended. I should bring on a mouse next time. All right, so window, Chrome tab. I'll just share this window. And I'll talk more about this. Ooh, I have a comment. I may want to look into creating a static HTML version. And it looks like it's from Steve. Oh, from Facebook. Hey, Steve, how's it going? Yeah, so yeah, that's actually a good idea. I've been thinking about that. I have been thinking about that because I've heard a lot of people do that. There is a lot of downside, but I mean, honestly, you have to recreate the site every time you publish. Yeah, I know. I kind of like that idea. Steve, if you have any information on people or tools or services that do that, let me know because that's definitely something I want to do. I target publishing 5 times per day, 7 days a week. Basically, this month I'm probably well, I'm definitely missing it this month, but I'm going to set aside some time to do that. So I'm going to maximize this screen, and this is pretty cool. But let's see, I don't know why it's not loading proper, but it's really cool because there's a article basically about Electrify, how we produce pre-trained models. And let me tab over so to here. Basically, David Tyke basically um, talks about kind of how Electrify is working on build out kind of pre-trained models. So I'm not going to turn this into a Electrify commercial. That's what this weekend applied AI is, but we'll definitely talk about that. And we are hiring, so if you're interested in joining the team as a solutions architect, hit me up in the comments below or email me, and we can build great things together. So here's my 20-second elevator pitch for Electrify. A lot of companies, they want to implement AI. A lot of companies don't have the depth of knowledge or the organizational will to build out a proper data science team. What Electrify does is that we have created pre-trained models that your organization can implement and deploy in weeks, not months. And it tracks very similar to what Microsoft and Amazon and Google have done with what Microsoft calls cognitive services. Amazon has, I don't know if they've looped it in. I'm not as familiar with the Amazon ecosystem as I should be, and I am working on that. But ultimately, it's the idea that you get the best kind of output from very brilliant minds, and you capture that. You capture that in the bottle, and you buy the bottle. If you're in the Microsoft ecosystem, I'll speak on that because Spent nearly 10 years at Microsoft. And basically, it works like this: you make a REST API call, and you make a REST API call out to a cognitive service. And we have a number of, well, I should still say we want to talk about Microsoft. But Microsoft has about 60 of these. And you send it a picture, it'll tell you what's in the picture, that sort of thing. And you don't have to know anything about computer vision. All you have to do is know how to make a REST API call. In fact, some of the newer services that are inside of Office or M365 leverage these in the back end. So you don't even have to write any code at this point. Power Apps, Power Platform has a number of these solutions kind of built in. And you're seeing this with, I think it was codenamed Cortex, and there was another one, not Project Brainwave. Project Brainwave was something else. But you're seeing this happen. And here's the analogy. Is there always going to be a need for data scientists? Absolutely. There is always going to be a need for data scientists. Just like today, there's still a need for web developers. So going back to the early days of the web, to build a website, you needed a graphic designer, you needed a developer, you needed basically a whole team of people. But now you can fire up a browser, go to Wix.com, Squarespace, you name it. Right? There's at least half a dozen of these services. There's probably more, but I can name about 5. And have a website up and running in a matter of 15, 20 minutes. It's even gotten to the point where if you want to get a e-commerce solution and start selling things online, you can have the idea at lunchtime and be selling stuff by dinner time. Contrast with that with the early days of the web, like when I was at barnesandnoble.com, it took months and teams of engineers to make that happen. Things have shifted in web development, right? That's an understatement. I also see that the same shift is coming to AI. Electrify is going to be part of that wave, just like Microsoft. Microsoft is doing that. Google's doing it. Amazon's doing it with a number of their services. It is definitely kind of I think we're at the early crest of that wave, the next wave of AI innovation. And yeah, maybe there'll be an AI winter, maybe there won't be. But ultimately, there's still a lot of places that AI is not deployed but could be used. And this would amaze me when I was the MTC architect in Reston. It amazed me how many customers, they knew they had the data, they knew they should do something with AI, but they weren't. And that's when I saw the opportunity, and coincidentally, Electrify reached out. So that's why I joined. Speaking of which, apparently my old job, the posting is online. So hit me up if you're interested. I'll get you plugged in with the right people. And that's all I got. Any questions? So Steve, I appreciate the comment about WordPress, static WordPress site, because for most of what I do, a static WordPress site would be fine. I mean, I try to get ahead of publishing, and I only publish probably like around midnight Eastern time. So if I were to run a script around, say, 1 a.m. Eastern time, then that would get rid of a lot of it. But what's interesting is, and if there's any WordPress folks on the call, not the call, that calls in the brain. If there's any WordPress folks here on the stream or watching this live or watching this later, they basically said that for some reason, the WordPress engine is sending a lot of kind of nonsense queries, like where it's just basically doing searches, and that's what's eating up my CPU use. I could call up my hosting provider like right now and say, you know what, get me on one of the higher end plans. But that significantly increases the cost of running franksworld.com. And if it's WordPress is to blame, I'll just be burning CPU cycles now and not getting any value out of it, which is why I haven't done that. So, and I've reduced a lot of the plugins I really wasn't using, and that sort of thing. Alberto, how's it going? Thanks for the comment. Glad you could stop in and watch. How do I see AI and nanotechnology merging in the future? Oh, totally. I mean, there's a number of science fiction stories where they talk about the nanotechnology kind of create this hive brain, right? You know, on a larger scale, right? It's the Borg, right? And if you're a nerd, you probably have seen the episodes where they explain kind of the inner workings of the Borg and how basically their hive mind is connected through little nanoprobes, and that's how they go and they basically spread by assimilating other species and cultures, and they basically inject nanoprobes and turn that person into a another Borg drone, which is almost like a technological version of the virus. Arguably, you can say that viruses are themselves kind of biological nanotech, right? That just evolved naturally, or it could be weaponized as well. So I think nanotechnology is going to have some kind of AI attached to it, even if that AI is extremely simple, right? Um, and I think what we see in nature, um, yeah, you have a similar vision. That's right. Great minds think alike. If you haven't seen Alberto and Rupesh's podcast, you definitely got to check it out. It's very thought provoking. It's about kind of that one word of, what would you give a super intelligent AI, or what would you do to kind of create an AI? I was privileged to be a guest on it, so it's an awesome show. They've had it's really thought provoking because it kind of touches on what makes AI kind of special to me or fascinating to me, is that it merges the world of philosophy, math, science, and technology, right? It's not like school. Reality is not like school, right? You don't have this between 10:30 a.m. and 11:15, we're going to be talking about philosophy or math. And then you put that down, and then at 11:15 you go to 12:30 and you talk about math, right? Or some other topic. The world is connected. The nature is connected. It doesn't exist in these silos. So I've always appreciated those subjects, or those fringe areas of subjects where, you know, um, math and philosophy, for instance, meet up. In fact, we were talking about, my son actually came up with this. One of his friends said, you know, what happens if you divide infinity by infinity, right? Now, his friend said that, first off, I'm blessed that I have a kid like 11 years old asking stuff like that, right? Thank you, God. Uh, but um, if you divide infinity by infinity, his friend thinks it's one, and he says it's infinity. And so this is a great example of where, awesome, always on honor. I know I'm thinking right when I'm on the same wavelength as Alberto. That's all I'll say. I know I'm in the right headspace to be in the same kind of mental neighborhood as a genius like him. Um, but I mean, this is so my son was like upset because when they first asked me, I agreed with the other kid that infinity divided by infinity is one. And later we were talking about it. I was like, well, this is a great example of where math kind of touches another field like philosophy, right? So if you take the infinity symbol and you treat it as just a placeholder for an actual number, then yeah, I mean, anything divided by itself is one, right? And yeah, exactly. We learn from the youth how to think out of the box, right? Kids don't have years of deprogramming of programming to force them to think in that box. They haven't gotten there yet. That's true curiosity, and that is the true. I think the true secret to staying youthful, right, is maintaining that growth mindset, or just natural curiosity, which our school system beats out of us, and workplaces, some workplaces too. Um, so I said, if you think of infinity as a finite number, and you have that, you can't have infinity be a finite number. So if you think of it as a number, right, a very large number divided by itself is, well, basically one, right? If you think of it, however, as infinity, the symbol, as a concept rather than a number, then the answer is not quite as clear. And could it be infinity? I mean, maybe. This is where it's not so clear, right? And it really depends on how you think about the problem. If you think of it as just a straight up math problem, any number divided by itself, it's always one. If you think of infinity as a concept, concept divided by concept, that's not so clear. Maybe it's one. I mean, here's kind of the question put in language, right, as opposed to math, right? Well, how much do you have if you have infinitesimally small amounts of infinite things? I don't know. I mean, you could make the argument that the entire universe is made up of an infinite number of infinitesimally small things. So if you take that line of thinking, um, then the answer is infinity, right? Because we have an infinite number of infinitesimally small things. It's kind of everything, right? So a lot of it is how you think about the problem or how you state the problem. So the question the answer to my son was, you have to be more specific in your language, right? If you're saying number, what is infinity, right? So you see when they do mathematical proofs, right, they'll start off with let this be that. Well, what are you letting the infinity symbol be? Is it a discrete number? That's the word I was looking for, not finite. Is it a discrete number or is it a concept? Or is it something else entirely? I'm sure there's other ways you can slice this sandwich too, right? Exactly. Diversity of thought. Exactly, right? Which is radically underappreciated in our modern world. If you think of it as a symbol, an artist could cut it in half. Yes, yeah, I mean that's true, right? And then what is it symbolizing, right? Because symbols are powerful in themselves, but I mean, what is that? What's behind that symbol, right? Like what does that mean? So there's any number of ways you can kind of slice this problem, but how you slice the problem depends on what your line of thinking is. And that for me, right? Let's just take a step back, right? That's cool, right? Because normally math is just about facts and figures and numbers and things like that and discrete truths. But underneath all that, there's a rich philosophical foundation that I don't think enough people appreciate. And uh, there's definitely a lot to unpack there. But here's a good thing, right? So there's actually an interesting thought experiment and debate in mathematics to this day. Is like, is math invented or is it discovered? Right? I mean, if five rocks are floating in space, if three rocks are floating in space in this direction, and then suddenly two rocks kind of join them, right? That's addition. So now there's five rocks floating in space. Um, you know, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like it's discovered, right? But there was actually an interesting thing. It was Dr. Hannah Fry was interviewing a bunch of people, and they were talking about, is math discovered or invented? And part of what came out of that was, what about imaginary numbers, right? Square root of one. Well, square root of one was invented, but it starts popping up in all these weird natural phenomena in formula, um, which is like, well, gee, that kind of made me change the way I think about it too, right? I think just like the infinity over infinity, I think the answer really depends on how you slice it. Yes, ask children to explain the concept of math. I like that. When my kids get out of class, I'll ask them. I like that idea. But if you haven't seen her, definitely go to YouTube and check out Dr. Hannah Fry. Um, her stuff is pretty cool. She does a lot of stuff on British TV. And if you have like, is it Curiosity Stream or Great Courses, one of those, a lot of her shows that are overseas end up here. And there's some other guy named Jim something. The Joy of Math, Joy of Stats, kind of History of Money, really cool stuff. Yes, discovered versus invented, right? I mean, that's a great debate. When I first heard that, well, of course it's discovered because, if a tree falls in the forest, it's still gonna, you know, fall through the air. It's still gonna, the molecules are still gonna crack. They're still gonna do this, right? It's still gonna make a noise. But how do you define noise, right? So one debate in philosophy class I remember taking in school was, well, it doesn't really make a noise because a person has to determine whether something's a sound versus a noise. It was interesting. Some of it's semantics, but some of it's kind of a big deal. And speaking of kids, they're here. Awesome. So wait up, guys. I'll be right over. Or just come. Come onto the car. So with that, I'm going to end the show, and I want to say thank you for watching. Thank you, Alberto. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And we can ask them live. Hey, guys, is math discovered or invented? Discovered. What do you think, Ben? They both say discovered. So there you go. Out of the mouth of babes. You have a great one.
You can't invent it because it's not a thing.
You can't invent it because it's not a thing. That's an interesting answer. Well, I know we'll be talking about at lunch.